Доброго дня, шановні.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings at UCMC Press Center. We are here today to hear the presentation on the Urban Competitiveness Index, analytical tool for assessing and stimulating the business climate in Ukrainian cities. I give the floor to the moderator of the discussion. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Media representatives and all those who are interested. I'm Oksana. I work for the project of USAID, the Competitive Economy Program, and I'm a manager on the issues of competitiveness. And I would like to briefly tell you about the index, and we'll introduce our speakers. And first we will speak about ICM, and then we will go into Q&A session. Let's start with the introduction of the speakers. Dmytro Romanovych, Deputy Minister of Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture of Ukraine. Lubomyr, my colleague, Business Climate Improvement Manager at USAID, Ukraine's Competitive Economy Program, and our partners who implement this research, Dmitro, Savchuk, research expert Info Sapiens, and Oksana Kuziakiv, Executive Director of the Institute for Economic Research and Policy Consulting. So what is this Municipal Competitiveness Index? This is a tool to assess business climate and to identify local governance in the context of business and to create proper conditions for doing business. It is formed by surveying the representatives of the business and using open data from open sources about 10 sub-indexes that form this index of competitiveness. This is a research that is carried out for the first time under this methodology, and this initiative is implemented by USAID program, the Competitive Economy Program, together with Info Sapiens, Institute of Economic Research and Policy Consulting, and supported by the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Agriculture. Why we chose this index? Municipal Competitiveness Index is based on the methodology that was used by Asia Foundation in 2005 in Vietnam, and then it was used in the countries of Eastern Europe, Latin America, and Asia. In the countries where there is economic and political development. What is the peculiarity of this methodology? In the course of each research, for each country, for each city, they use adaptation to the circumstances of this country and city. We adapted our methodology to Ukrainian situation, and my colleagues will give you more details about peculiarities in methodology and about collection of data. Also, focus should be made on the fact that the advantage of this method is that it is focused on municipalities or cities, and in the context of decentralization that is ongoing in Ukraine, it has its advantage. It's not like research at the national or regional level. What does this index provide? It will help business to better understand and to provide proposals about the views how we can improve conditions for doing business in the identified cities. For investors, this index may serve as a road sign in order to identify in what city business climate is better and in what format you may do investment and where there is proactive governance in this aspect. For municipal authorities, this index may become, and I believe it will become, a practical tool to identify weaknesses in regulation or those areas where they have some gaps, to focus proper efforts on in order to improve situation. For the government of Ukraine, this, I hope, also will become an instrument, a tool, to form the strategy of policies and to form efficient and transparent relations between business and power, and at all levels between the bodies of local governance and central government. For business associations and activists, this index will help to form those areas and those issues that need advocacy, promotion and discussion with local authorities, municipal authorities. Also, MCI will help international donors to identify priorities for donor support in the areas of reform. MCI may also help the Ministry of Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture, and Dmitro Romanovych will give you more details on this. Is the Deputy Minister of Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture of Ukraine. I'm really glad to be at this press conference. One of the priorities of the ministry is the development of small and medium-sized business, because they're able to provide fast and sustainable growth. When we are speaking about micro, mini and medium-sized business, traditionally we face a number of problems that should be resolved, and there are some problems in communication. Big business, they have good representation in Kiev, where key governmental organizations are situated. They have big professional associations that bring their professional problems, and they are comfortable stakeholders. But the regional micro, mini and small-sized, medium-sized businesses, it is more difficult for them to communicate their wishes, despite the internet, despite many platforms. It is still difficult for them. That's why it is necessary to gather information in the regions from SMEs to understand how to improve the situation for this class of entrepreneurs. Recently, the government and the Ministry of Economy launched a big program, loan program, compensation of rates, 579 program it is called, to help the small business, and we hold meetings that are oriented on small business. We hold inspection reforms, and many other events are held. Once again, first information is needed about the pains, and information whether we are moving in the right direction. It is really important for us. This is an important feedback, and I'm really waiting for the first results of this survey and also the result of this index. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dmitry. Now the floor is given to Lubomyr Chornii, Business Climate Improvement Manager at USAID, Ukraine's competitive economy program, and he will tell us about how this program will use the results of the index and what may be the practical results for cities. You are given the floor. Thank you, Arseny. Thank you for joining us during our presentation, and we're speaking about the first methodological approach. I won't take much time. I hope that you need time for Q&A session. We should have live discussion. That's why I would like to briefly speak about some key points. For the competitive economy program in Ukraine, it is really important to promote new startups in Ukraine, to develop SMEs in Ukraine, in order that they become competitive both in domestic and international markets. For our program, it is also important to internationalize the enterprises, to help them to promote in foreign markets, to participate in foreign trade. In this context, first we need to create proper environment for business in Ukraine. We support this index. For us, this is a serious strategic initiative, and it is an important investment of time and effort that will be focused by the program and our partners, and we hope that the index will help us launch some really important processes for Ukraine. We hope that municipalities will compete among themselves, and this will help us to form the rating based on this index, and they will try to improve their business climate and perception of their image. They will promote investment for enterprises, and in this way the mechanisms will be launched when cities will make some contributions in order to remove barriers, in order to create business conditions, and new investors would be able to come to these cities, and cities will be more attractive for business and investment. With this aim, we help to create this index. We want to have a rating, and cities will be able to compare the success and the failures among themselves, and in this way we will be helping them to improve environment in each city. We will provide consultations, will support initiatives that will be directed to solve the problems in each city. This year we plan to start this work in 5 cities that will agree for this initiative, that will say that they are really interested to improve local business climate if everything is okay, and this pilot will be successful. And we hope for this next years we will scale up this support, this program, and we will propose it to more cities. This year we plan to cover 24 cities. These are oblast centers plus Kiev, and until the end of program we want to cover 60 biggest cities of Ukraine. Also it is worth saying that we will not only look at figures, not only on the ranking. For us it is interesting to reveal the best practices, to look and see why some cities achieved better results than others. And we will be trying to describe and spread such practices in order that others be able to use this valuable experience and to improve their indicators. Also important focus. This method that will be used, it is internationally recognized and it is used as of today in about 20 countries. And to some extent we will be able to compare what is going on in Ukraine with what is going on in other countries, and we will see dynamics and overall picture. That's why I would like to say that we only launch now this work, and we hope that it will be successful and it will become a good basis to monitor economic governance in Ukrainian cities. Thank you, Lubomyr. Now we go to the issue of practical importance, how this index is formed, and for this I give the floor Dmytro Savchuk, research expert, Info Sapiens. Thank you, Arseny. Good afternoon, everyone. MCI is based on survey on enterprises surveyed by Info Sapiens. Then we provided to the Institute of Economic Research and Political Consulting, and then they work on this data. We carry out a survey of heads of enterprises and owners in Kiev and in Oblast centers, 24 cities, about 5,000 people. This is done at random, and this is done by telephone interview. There are several blocks that are transformed into component of index: starting business and access to public property, support of innovation. The survey is the key component of the index. It provides the view of the people, of entrepreneurs at the local level, perception of business, because they are the key beneficiaries in assessing business climate and potential for investors. We survey mini business to a big business, and now the first wave of survey is ongoing to form this year's index. In each city, about 200 interviews are held. Second wave next year, about 45 cities will be covered. Third wave, we hope 60 cities will participate. First wave started mid-January and will last until April. We held about 1,000 interviews. We hold interviews with those who listen to us now. Maybe you were selected, and we will phone you. Please participate in our survey. I would like to note that this survey is done in Ukraine for the first time, and we are really proud that together with our partners we implement this project. Thank you, Dmitry. And I would like to call on all representatives of business to support this initiative. It won't take much time, and for us it will be really useful. And I hope that everyone who participate will have some practical result out of it and some use. And now I'd like to give the floor to Oksana Kuziakiv, the Executive Director of the Institute for Economic Research and Policy Consulting, and she will tell us about this massive of data, 5,000 surveyed people, and what other sources of information they will use, and where is this magic from which this index will appear. Magic is mathematics, actually. So I see many faces here. I know some of you. So We have been creating many indexes, but this is a big, interesting task for us. We joined the project on Municipal Competitiveness Index because we see a need in this instrument and we see big potential in the use of this instrument in Ukraine for Ukrainian cities. Why? Because, as my colleagues mentioned, in the result of decentralization that we believe is one of the most successful reforms that are ongoing in Ukraine. Ukrainian cities and municipalities get more and more responsibilities in order to create changes locally. That is what we all want. And we have different results. Some do better, others do worse. And this comparison, this assessment, this index, this is what is really needed, and comparison assessment that is based on independent view from independent observer to see what is going on in each of the cities. Policy of economic development will be considered, and we have our independent team of the Institute and the team of Sapiens. What we study? We study the quality of business environment through 10 components. You may see them in your materials. And the idea how to assess these components based on survey and based on statistics, this is, we believe, really timely because the quality of business environment is first of all, is competitiveness. This is how the city will attract investors. That's why I would like to stress that this is really needed and this is really timely. Our institute, what we will do in this area, I would like to mention that first. We started to collect statistical data, administrative data, quality of regional statistics or administrative data and accessibility in Ukraine. We have cabinet research, and also we started communication with city councils in order to get information from them about some indicators. And using this opportunity, I would like to say that we revealed some interesting things. This is not just about figures. We ask municipalities to provide assessment about the development of infrastructure for support of the business, and we got interesting answers. In one municipality, they said, "Give us time. It is great that you phoned us, and we will think about it because we never thought about this before." Others sent information to us and they thanked us because they said that we forced them to think about it, to find out and to agree about what it is. So these are rather curious things, and in Ukraine we have such a change of people in power at the regional level, and in this analytical work it is really important to have a proper feedback. People start to think, and this will be for the better. What will happen after we collected the data timely? We got results of a large-scale sociological research, 5,000 surveyed enterprises, and using methodology that proved itself in the world, we will prepare a rating, and then you will be able to see who do better and who do worse, and we will also produce a report and profiles for cities about what may be improved, how to become better. Two important aspects I would like to focus your attention on. This project is different. There is some uniqueness. We use such an approach as ideal city. This is like sun city that does not exist, but it would exist if in the cities they would use best practices from other cities. So after research is done based on the results of rating sub-indexes, we will be trying to construct an ideal city based on 5 or 7 best positions according with with the sub-indexes, and then we will go to municipalities and will ask them how they were able to achieve it, to tell us about it, and to have representatives of power, business of their cities, and these will be interesting discussions, we believe. As my colleague stated, and I would like to repeat, the voice of business, this feedback, as Dmitry Romanovych said, the information about pains and about directions, this is the uniqueness of this project. A big massive of data will be collected. Summing up, I would like to say that we will use all our big experience of adaptation and development of different approaches to assess business climate in order to get a reliable and sustainable source of information and source of analytical data. And local power will see its economic policy mirrored by statistics and will be able to compare pluses and minuses with others. This index is not only about figures, as I've said. They will be able to see what the best practices are, and the power will be able to share success. Sometimes we are not able to share the success, but local power will be able to share its success, to tell about their city, why people should live there and work there. And in this way, we will increase attractiveness of these cities by showing how changes are done locally, how they create powerful local economies, and in this way we all be able to contribute to the development of national economy, and there will be a big use from this work. Once again, using this opportunity, maybe some representatives of local governance hear us now, and we, as our colleagues, we addressed the authorities of 24 cities and also the authorities of Kiev. Please answer our questions, because the results of the index will depend on your answers. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Oksana, for this comment, and I believe that our cities, not only oblast centers, but smaller cities, will move toward this ideal city that is non-existent at the moment. Thank you, dear speakers, for this information, for your presentation. And we thank Dmitry Romanovych, the Deputy Minister of Development of Economy, Trade and Agriculture, for support of this initiative. Now we have Q&A session. That's why I invite you to ask questions. Please introduce yourself and then address your question. Dmytro Galasiuk, former entrepreneur. I would like to ask whether you plan to go to the level of the regional centers, 20,000 to 50,000 population, because in oblast centers where they have 150,000 or more, there is infrastructure, there are entrepreneurs, they are rather developed, but the regional centers, they suffer. They do not have investment councils, no proper infrastructure. Thank you. I will try to give an answer. The development of infrastructure and support of entrepreneurship, this is a serious problem for Ukraine, and a big challenge for all those who direct their efforts to develop economy in Ukraine. As we see, those examples brought by Oksana, we are speaking about oblast centers now, they do not all understand what conditions should be provided for entrepreneurship, and there should be proper information and education campaign about the scale of our index that we want to reach. We hope within our program we want to cover 60 biggest cities of Ukraine. Partly there will be some regional centers and cities that are drivers, economic drivers for the region or for the whole country. So if this index is good, and you know that it is rather costly, because there are many respondents who are involved in this survey, we hope that this tradition will be started and will continue itself in Ukraine. Could you provide some recommendations, some methodology for volunteers? Maybe they will do this research for some hundreds of cities, smaller cities. We do not see a problem in this, but we hold this survey for the first time, and we will try and see how it will be implemented, and then we will be able to provide it to volunteers, to civil society. This is an interesting idea, and we believe that we will work on this idea with our colleagues, and at the end of the third wave we will have understanding how to scale up it and concentrate it, and to spend less resources for implementation. One more important aspect, index and its methodology on which it is based. This is an open product, and after the first wave we will see whether it needs improvement, and we have 10 sub-indexes and sociological indicators, and also hard data. We will show all this, how it was calculated, what was taken into account, and about sociological part. To make some conclusions, how to attract additional people, volunteers. This conclusion will be made in the future. It is still too early because we do not know what result we will have. We are optimists, but we should live and see how it will work in practice. Natalia Tenka, sociologist. About methodology, will it take into account amalgamated territorial communities? In the first wave, we will deal only with the cities. This is not about amalgamated communities. And second and third wave, when we speak about cities of oblast and regional importance, maybe we will spread it to amalgamated communities, but we won't cover them now. We all see dynamic process of decentralization, and now this division is difficult to make because, for example, Vinnytsia is the center of amalgamated territorial communities, so they are taken into account, but there is no division. Whether this dynamics, whether it is amalgamated community or not, Maybe this is a very interesting comparison, but we should have proper data. Then we will be able to compare in this respect. Good afternoon. Representative of Kiev Economic Institute Urbanism Department. I have a question. I saw a methodology that will be used. I have a question. There is index of global cities, and there are important aspects of productiveness of business, for example, all aspects connected with its activity, and the transnationalization aspect. And I see 10 points here. If you look at them, only framework, institutional parameters for improvement. But what about the status? Where it will be described, and what about transnationalization of Ukrainian business, and to include small and medium enterprises to global production networks and global value chains? Thank you. There are many indices in the world, as I've said. This is not the first index of competitiveness that is done in Ukraine. This index measures, as you've said it correctly, I agree with you, these are framework conditions, what can be seen and what can be compared and quickly changed, because we live in an epoch of quick changes. This is less about the figures, less about science. This is really practical tool that may be used by Ukrainian municipalities in their work in order to correct those policies that influence economic governance in cities. For example, to start business, access to public property. These are practical, concrete issues that are within the municipalities, their responsibilities. And the task of this project and index, and how it differs from others, is that it is really practical. We measure, we look who are the best, or how we may correct the situation. In Ukrainian conditions, we understand that sometimes the Ukrainian conditions differ from what is written in books. And for this, we use this index. The place of SMEs, we understand that this is the basis of Ukrainian economy. A lot of people work in these enterprises. We have 260 big enterprises, all others work in small and medium-sized businesses. So the majority of those who will be surveyed, these are physical persons, entrepreneurs, mini businesses, micro businesses, and small and medium-sized businesses, and we will survey them and assess them. The methodology, and you see we have 10 sub-indexes, pillars, and there will be a number of traditional questions, barriers to business, long and short-term prospects, and we will get information about the opinion of business, and this is really important. When you ask questions, please address your question. Dmytro, question to Oksana Kuziakiv about the cost of survey of 5,000 entrepreneurs, and what about the processing of the data and the elaboration of recommendations, and are you ready to work with amalgamated communities? For example, the head of administration, for example, if they ask you to survey in their oblast, are you ready to do this, and based on what conditions? This is not a question for me. I represent the Institute of Economic Research and Political Consulting, and we are those who implement the project. I believe this question is to my colleagues from the program, maybe they are more competent to answer your question, please. When we announced the tender to carry out the survey, we believe that we will get proposals up to $500,000 for 2 waves, 24 plus 45, and we had different proposals. Some of them were more costly, and the proposal that won, this was not only due to the price, but also due to the approach, due to methodology and vision, how this index may develop in the future. Sapiens became the winner, and the Institute of Economic Research and Policy Consulting, they became the winner. And this one more question. Do you plan to take into Andrei Megel, do you plan to take into account the experience of the cities? For example, in Lviv, they provide some consultations, some advice was provided by foreign experts, but in some cities they are not taken into account. There should be transparency in this issue. And the question to Deputy Minister, do you plan to take into account the change in statistics, to have some continuity and to get proper information at the level of the state? We spent a lot of time to form, as part of terms of reference, to create a methodology how we see the program. When those who will implement the survey were identified, we worked on this methodology, and we paid a lot of attention to elaboration of the things that will be included, what indicators will be included, what additional information and data, except statistics, will be used. We are among the first who had a serious approach to the issues of infrastructure of doing business at the local level. This is a very important issue when we are speaking about the experience of Lviv and some other cities of Ukraine. This is a part of infrastructure for support of entrepreneurship. What is really important, we will not only collect data about the institutions and their availability, we will ask business to say whether they believe that the experience of the work institutions, whether this experience is good, whether they believe that the level of development of infrastructure is enough in some cities. So we will cover this area. Also, we will assess some parameters of infrastructure that helps to introduce innovations. Does business know how innovations are introduced? Do they see some efforts from the side of the municipalities concerning introduction of innovation? And also leadership and economic governance, whether local government is efficient. So these things were not properly studied before, and we introduced it in our research, and this will be interesting for the public for further discussions. I would like to comment about state statistics. This is for the first time when this methodology is used to carry out survey in Ukraine. Now we have pilot cities, then we will spread this program further. We will see how this index works, whether we may simplify it or make it less costly, whether it really helps. When the first stage ends, we will be able to think whether we should introduce it through state statistics, whether it is realistic. We are glad that we are experimenting now to some extent, and based on the results we will take a decision concerning institutionalization of this index. Thank you. Will you take into account cultural component? Maybe some myths, some mythologization of the cities. Maybe this is the previous project was connected with culture in business. This is about policy of economic governance, maybe some aspects of this policy on which you can quickly influence, quickly correct some things in order to improve. That's why we cannot cover what we cannot cover everything. We will focus on 10 groups of indicators that you may see in our materials. Culture as it is not considered. Do you have other questions or comments? If there are no, we thank everyone for your attention. This is the end of press briefing. We thank everyone for finding opportunity to be with us, to participate in the presentation of Municipal Competitiveness Index. We were really glad to speak with you. Thank you.